This is Michael Carson back with another video. I want to go over the Zero Hedge article titled UK Starmer, I'm ready to put British troops in Ukraine. This is nuts. There's still boats coming in to England, and they're just letting them come in so they could do whatever the hell they want. Alright, let me just get started on the article. Europe is growing more hawkish in its rhetoric, seeing the need for a counterbalance against Trump. Efforts to secure lasting peace in Ukraine, which recently included Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announcing that the U.S. does not see future NATO membership for Ukraine as a realistic possibility. In the latest shot across the bow, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that the UK is ready and willing to put British peacekeeping troops on the ground in Ukraine, stressing it is essential that the West backs Kiev towards securing a lasting peace in Ukraine that safeguards its sovereignty for the long term, which is essential to deter Putin from further aggression. Yet there is no framework for negotiated peace in place, and yet Starmer is talking about boots on the ground. The thing is Starmer honestly wants to get rid of the men in his country. He wants to get rid of British men, because that way he can let the women, be taken advantage of by certain Sharia law-loving people. Let me continue. This was laid out in an op-ed the Telegraph newspaper published Sunday night. He sounded similar note to other European leaders who have warned that Trump's peace plan could cede all immense sacrifices made defending Ukraine thus far. We must be clear that peace cannot come at any cost, Starmer said. Ukraine must be at the table in these negotiations because anything less would accept Putin's position that Ukraine is not a real nation. He stressed the end of the war when it comes cannot merely become a temporary pause before Putin attacks again. He just wants to feed men into the freaking meat grinder. That's what he wants to do, let's be honest. This echoes current concerns out of Europe that Zelensky and the Ukrainians and European allies are being cut out of negotiations between Putin and Trump. For example, Finland's President Alexander Stubb told reporters that in Munich that this weekend there is no way in which we have discussions or negotiations about Ukraine's future, or European security structure without Europeans. But this means Europe needs to get its act together. Europe needs to talk less and do more, he added. Macron, as well as German leadership, have said similar things, but political reports there's yet been little to indicate that Ukraine is directly involved in talk preparations. The Trump administration has since sent mixed messages about Ukraine's role in the peace talks. Over the weekend, Politico reported that a senior Trump administration official were headed to Saudi Arabia to begin negotiations with Russia and Ukrainians surprising Kiev. Starmer further wrote in his op-ed, "Well, European nations must step up in this moment, and we will. U.S. support will remain critical, and the U.S. security guarantee is essential for a lasting peace because only the U.S. can deter Putin from attacking again." He announced that I will be meeting with President Trump in the coming days and working with him on all our G7 partners to help secure the strong deal we need. He acknowledged that more needs to be spent on defense, consistent with Trump administration pleas. And he said he'd be telling colleagues in the emergency French-hosted summit of European leaders on Monday that we have got to show we are truly serious about our own defense and bearing our own burden. We have talked about it for too long, and President Trump is right to demand that we get with it, that we get on with it. The thing is you don't need to send British troops in there. You need to protect your own people. I'm sorry. The grooming gang issue, the constant harassment the women are facing, no. You need to start cracking down on the people in your country illegally and send them back home. You don't need to add more people, especially when you're not willing to deport criminals that should not be in the country to begin with. Let me continue. There's a link to a post from a Twitter user called Nicholas Lasac. Not one British troop should march into Ukraine, Keir Starmer. And there's more in the post, but I'm just going to carry on because I don't need to focus on Twitter posts. Trump might welcome Europeans' willingness to send peacekeeping forces in wake of potential agreement with Moscow, given he has stressed that no U.S. troops will ever be sent and that it is Europe's responsibility to shoulder the burden of its own security. Meanwhile, one user sounded off in response to the latest headlines, saying people are angrier at Donald Trump for attempting to stop the war in Ukraine than Keir Starmer for wanting to send British troops there to die. These people need a mental assignment. And that user was the Norfolk Lion. That is actually not on my screen. And then it ends with a post from Mark Ames, the pro-Ukrainian war crowd, as a new solution: global nuclear holocaust. Which, let's get real. We're not going to get there right now if we haven't already gotten there. So I would worry a little less about that, to be honest. Anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and remember that I also upload my videos on Rumble to Michael Carson 2029, because Britain needs to be saved before 2029, or else it's gonna get even worse. There was elections canceled in 9 areas, and those elections need to be reinstated. It can't wait another year. It's just gonna cause more problems. Thank you for listening again, and see you in the next one.